Hello and welcome to another edition of the Water Cooler Podcast presented by Skol Marketing. I am your host, Hunter. I am joined by my esteemed colleagues. We have Mr. Drew Coulomb and Abe Fortier. Today we are going to dive into the world of marketing once again, this time talking about grabbing your attention. We're talking hooks in this week's episode of the Water Cooler. We're excited to have you here. Chances are, if you're watching this video right now or listening to this podcast, you were doing a little bit of scrolling. Today, we want to dive into what makes you stop the scroll and how different social media creators capture your attention. So I want to ask you guys right off the bat, what makes you stop scrolling right now? What sort of grabs your attention? What gets the thumbs to stop moving and the eyes to lock in?
Yeah. So for me, I think the two types of hooks that make me stop the most are tutorial hooks or like question hooks. Mm-hmm. So if I saw a tutorial about like, here's how to make the best peanut butter and jelly sandwich you've ever seen, True. I'd be like, well, shoot, I like peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I got to watch and see what they do differently. So those are definitely my two biggest hooks that get me hooked.
Yeah, honestly, for me, I feel like, and it kind of pisses me off, the ones that stop me the most are the ones with all the text on it. And it's because it's triggering my brain to want to like read everything on it, which is actually like a tactic that people take to actually get people to stay on their video longer. So I would say those, but also just like anything that, of course, is within my realm of interest, just like anything that's super visually appealing or intriguing to me and my interests, like skate videos or music videos, I would say is one that definitely captures me, especially if I'm listening with AirPods on, but 80% of the time I'm not. But when I am doing that, then I would say even the audio is able to capture my attention.
I gotta say, I am a product of beastification. I feel like I am deeply enthralled by the way Mr. Beast does his hooks. Okay. So I'm thinking specifically about ones where he starts by shouting out whatever the topic may be and then having this big wide frame camera angle, pulling back and showing you the scale of what he's doing. So an example would be like, I put 100 average Joes against 10 of the greatest athletes in the world. And I feel like that sort of energy brings me in and I get kind of hooked. And I guess old Jimmy maybe has a little bit of science there behind that. But for me, I'm captured by the energy and seeing the scope of what the work is going to be right away. That's what really gets me going. And I wonder how much credit belongs to Mr. Beast for kind of revolutionizing the hook and the way that we look at things, because you listen to him talk about his formula for YouTube videos and he has it down to like this exact science, right? And so much of it is that retention in the first couple seconds. And for me, I just find that energy attractive in a sense, not attracted to Mr. Beast himself, but like the content of the video always kind of gets me going there. And I feel like that energy really brings me in.
Yeah. Oh. I'll go first. That is, I think, what you would call a shock value hook, where it is just like something shocking, which can be more clickbaity, but it's not always a bad thing. Like, I think what happens after that hook is what matters when you do a more shocking, clickbaity type hook, where if you have that sort of hook and you have no quality content to back it up, then I think that's where it becomes bad. But if you do have quality content to back it up, then I think you can pull it off.
Work, right?
Yeah.
It makes me think of have you guys ever heard of the influencer magician Jack Grady? He was also
enlighten us.
He was also known for being the fastest loser on America's Got Talent in his edition. I think he lasted 11 seconds and then they all X'd him. Anyways, a tactic that he takes, which kind of falls in line with the shock value, is that he will literally just be as close to the camera as possible and just scream. Like, that's how he gets your attention. He'll just be like, ah!
That is shock value.
Yeah, he literally just screams, and then I would say that's captured my attention many times, and I think it's super funny. But then his content obviously is satirical, and it is funny like that, so it works. But yeah, that is one instance of extreme shock value that works nowadays because at the end of the day, like you said, you literally have a few seconds. I think it's 3 seconds to convert somebody into watching more of your video. And then if they get 3 seconds in, you have to get them to watch 3 seconds more. So then there's like hooks within hooks. There's sub hooks, and you basically are creating separate chapters and hooks within your videos that try to keep people there, which is pretty crazy. So when you think about it, yeah.
That dives into something that I want to bring up to you guys. Like, where do you draw the line between a hook being effective, being truthful, and where do you draw the line at it being clickbait? Like, when does it kind of dive into that field?
Yeah, I think an example of a shock value hook and then a clickbaity video, I think which is one I saw, which is like 10 ways to wash your bread. And it's just a guy with loaves of bread and he's just holding them under his sink and he's washing them. And obviously, to the viewers, you don't wash your bread. And it's just like a stupid video to get views, but like it's just a clickbait video. Like there's no substance to that. And if you think it's funny, then sure. But like I personally don't really think it's that funny. And it kind of feels like a waste of my time. And that's when I think something is just clickbait, is when it's just a waste of my time. If there's no value to it, if there's no substance to it, then I think it's just clickbait.
So you don't find yourself laughing when you're watching a guy wash bread? Because for me, that would get me to watch it. I would just like support him just because of how absurd it is and just like the satire behind it. I think it is trying to draw attention to the exploitative nature of the algorithms. And I mean, maybe I have to watch it. It's all about delivery at the end of the day. Like if he's delivering it poorly and you can tell like it is just cash grab, then you don't gravitate towards it. But if he is just like, he has a funny personality, he's got charisma, then I would definitely watch a guy wash bread, and I would watch many episodes of that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting example because it feels like the whole point is to be ironic. So I get the angle of that being clickbait, but also the whole video is kind of baity in a sense.
Right.
So I guess it does serve its purpose, but that is a really good example because obviously you don't wash your bread. Like that's just absurd in so many ways. No, that's probably why I have salmonella right now. Because I'm not washing my bread. Where do you guys think hooks go wrong the most often?
Well, I think it is the like over-promising aspect or like the bait and switch, right? When it is something that isn't supposed to be ironic or it is supposed to be educational. I'll go back to the peanut butter and jelly example, like how to make the best peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And then they start the video by, promising these things like, hey, I'm going to help you make the best peanut butter and jelly sandwich that you've ever had in your entire life. It's going to change your life. It's going to make people love you. And then they don't get to the content on how to actually do that until after the first ad.
I think that's a really interesting point too, because one thing I've noticed, especially on YouTube Shorts, is there's a lot of videos that just end suddenly, right? Like it almost seems like their whole purpose is just to get the viewer hours or viewer count up for that channel. They'll oftentimes like hook you with an effective hook, get you to watch the video, and then by the end of the 30 seconds, there'll either be like a call to action to subscribe and watch the full video, or to, bring you to another part 2 that isn't even chronologically in your timeline. It just gets really messy, and I think that's a really important point, that there is sort of that element of, putting content out there for content's sake and not necessarily having a meaning behind it, just to try to, kind of fill the algorithm there.
Mm-hmm.
So do you guys think that hooks are beneficial for content? And ultimately, like, is it making things worse or better? I think it's kind of twofold, right? Ultimately, like, are people putting too much effort into hooks and not necessarily worrying about the end result? It kind of reminds me of, that meme of like the drawing of the horse where it's like hyper detailed in one part, and then one part is just like a stick figure kind of.
Like Game of Thrones ending.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Comparative.
Like, do you think that is sort of something that's seeping into content as a whole? And is it an issue?
I definitely think it's an issue. I mean, if you watch our last episode, I definitely have some sentiments around this, but I think we're losing the authenticity and the storytelling behind the content that we're putting out nowadays. And it is becoming more of a cash grab mathematical synthesis or analysis of like what's going on and how can I exploit it. Because if you look at like, your traditional plot arc, right? You have your exposition, your rising action, climax, falling action, and your resolution. You don't see that anymore. You don't, especially on short form. You don't see any of that. And, this is a proven process on how to tell a great story. Right now, you're just seeing a flat line where it's climax. Climax, climax, climax. And it's just like so overstimulating. And you're not really getting a story. You're just getting like the punchline over and over and over. But that doesn't make a great story. Does that make sense? Or what are your guys' opinion on that? On just like the storytelling aspect? What do you see?
Could you give me a hook to make me understand that? That was too much information. I can't understand it.
Storytelling is dead.
No, I think what you said makes sense, right? Like people are trying to sort of sacrifice this proven process for quick hitting dopamine.
Right.
I think a lot of it comes back to attention and dopamine. And ultimately, like when you are kind of mindlessly scrolling through TikTok or YouTube shorts, you're not necessarily in the mood to feel that full sort of arc of a story. And I think there is still a space for that, right? Like obviously films and long form videos and even podcasts in a sense are still very popular in that long form version. But I think that's just sort of part of the nature of the beast that you kind of have to sacrifice a little bit of that for short form. And if someone can have that full arc within a short form, I mean, props to them because you obviously are constrained by the time and all that.
But it would never work. It would never work because there wouldn't be the hook. You wouldn't be able to stop the scroll. And that's like literally the mathematics behind it. The algorithm rewards you for how long you get to stay or get people to stay and have your audience stay on your video rather than the production of the content or how it makes people feel. Like you're not rewarded over any of that. It's just how long people stay and how many times people watch it.
I kind of have two things. I will say, like, when you're reading a book, I will say, I remember I was an English major. The first sentence in a book has to capture a person's attention. Like, that's the most important sentence.
Call me Ishmael.
Like, you have to have, and that almost is a hook in itself. But I also think a really good hook is when it's a really good hook, similar to like CGI, really good CGI is when you can't tell that it's CGI. I think a good hook is when I'm not aware of it.
Do you think that works for the layman? Or is it just like, are we placating to all the individuals, like the Zoomers that are on these platforms? Do you think they think like that? Do you think they've read books? Do you think that Zoomers have read books? That's my question.
I think they've probably read a couple books, but the number is fewer and fewer as time goes on.
But I do agree about like you're not going to get that same level of storytelling on short form content. Yeah. It's just not. It's just such a different beast, and I kind of agree with Hunter that there are other places where you can get that, and I don't go to short form content to get that sort of thing. But
imagine if there was a platform where it was all short form. It was dedicated to short form, but it was like, we want you also to be a storyteller. Would that be cool? I think it would draw a specific audience, probably not very large, but
I love the angle we're going on here because I had a thought as we're discussing this. Do you guys know that I believe it's Hemingway. He was challenged with writing a story in the fewest amount of words possible. And I believe it's something along the lines of baby shoes for sale, never worn.
Oh my God. Yeah.
What if there was like a creator challenge where you were tasked with making short form content? It had to be, let's say, 30 seconds, and you had to have the entire story arc that you were laying out, Drew, just to sort of like test the limits of this medium, right? Because right now it is so quick hitting, it's so attention grabbing, and it serves its purpose there. But I would love to see sort of like a revolution of people wanting to capitalize on that with more intentional storytelling. And that just makes me think of that. I believe it's Hemingway. We can double check that. But that sort of storytelling that is so effective in this minimalist text, which I believe it was like 6 words. It just makes me think that would be a really cool challenge and really cool space for creators to kind of evolve into. And who knows, maybe with Gen Z and Gen Alpha coming up, that is like the future of Hollywood and filmmaking, right? Yeah. Like as attention spans go down, there was an article that came out about a film professor in America saying that, my students who sign up for film school don't even have the attention span to sit through these movies. And that's like their whole purpose of going to school is to become a filmmaker. I'd be curious to see if more people take on what we're discussing right now and really try to push the boundaries with storytelling and short form content. Because, right now, like we've said a million times in this episode, it is very short, and there are constraints to it, but, things need to evolve. And I wonder if that's, kind of a route that we could go on.
Mm-hmm. I am in full support of that. I would love to jump on that platform because I feel like it is then, it's keeping the art and the heart behind at the crux rather than the money behind it, or just like, hey, I'm going to capture your attention by exploiting the algorithm because at the end of the day, I just want a paycheck. Because then it's just like you lose the art form.
Yeah, and maybe someday in 20 years at the Oscars, the short film category is
30 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. I'm totally serious.
Yeah, no,
that could easily be an evolution. And in terms of the accessibility of it, we all have phones. We all have the capability of creating content. I think it could evolve into some really interesting stuff. And I'm kind of hoping that this conversation manifests that in the future in the film industry.
Oh, yeah.
All right, in honor of hooks, we are going to do a new segment on the Water Cooler Podcast where we hit you with a quick hook to see if it grabs your attention. We're starting off with Drew.
I'm locking myself into a box with 500,000 scorpions. Watch the episode to find out what happens.
All right, Abe, you ready?
No. I have 10 social media tips that'll help you change your career. That's kind of it.
It's like kind of like Dragon Ball Z-esque.
Kind of high pitched, but it's, I don't know.
I am going to show you how to become rich.
Watch our episode. That's good. That's a good hook.
You had the voice down.
That literally sounded like Mr. Beast.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Water Cooler Podcast. Did we have you hooked? Let us know in the comments.